street dances.
I think street maintenance is pretty important, don't you? I mean,
Very important,
I mean, I'm
because the
not
longer you wait, and
limiting
we've
it
been
to
down
the
this
same,
road
but-
before, if you put stuff off, you're gonna deal with what we're dealing with now. Streets that are, cracked and haven't been seal coated, and
We'll be
then
putting out more
repairs,
money.
repair costs go up.
yeah.
And,
But I mean, if
and
we're
granted,
talking
we're
about
facing
making
the,
cutbacks, there's certain things you can live without. Those things are the ones that you should look at before you look at street maintenance,
Mayor and Council, I'd like to just also add in, Mr. Becker and myself have done a lot of discussions already about what the budget should look like and what we plan to do for cuts and things for 2021. One of the things on the top of our list is to try to keep capital improvements and projects moving forward, so we're not kicking the can down the road that costs us more money in 3-5 years. So we're looking to make other cuts where we can, slim things down where we can, so we can hopefully keep those things moving forward. That's our initial plan, and that's what we plan to bring forward at our budget workshops. Always open for discussion, but we're trying to make sure we're not making more costs down the road. Like we've seen 6th Avenue costs us a lot of money for maintenance of pothole patching and the time investment of that, because that did get pushed back quite a few years.
And I think our department heads are smart enough to figure out, I guess, just say Public Works, for example. I guess I can do without this new lawnmower this year. I mean, those are big costs. Those are big dollar items that you could probably get 2 more years out of it. I mean, if any of you know anything about the fire department, you of all people, Jimmy, you know that. Look at the trucks that you guys have been running for years and years and years and getting every penny out of it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so that's kind of things that I'm referring to as cutting. I'm not saying you could say we can cut service for people and not do this and not do that. That isn't going to do anybody any good. It's more of I'd like to have this nice shiny new thing over here, but I can look at this dull one for a couple more years and make it work. That's the kind of things that I'm saying is, and that's what people don't see either.
well, that lawnmower's already been bought, so
No, but I'm
get our
just
money
saying
back?
is
we're not returning it.
yeah, but I'm just saying is those are things that the department heads are very well aware of what they could and cannot get by with. And those are huge. And I agree with Mr. Becker. I do not think that we'll lose all our LGA funds. We're going to lose a percentage of it. And I also feel like saying, we're forced to do things to get those LGA funds. And then the state might start thinking, hey, they're not going to do this because they're not getting all their funds that they should be getting. So you never know what's going to happen. And we can't cross that line until it happens, but I think we need to have Plan A in effect. And that's where I say, personally, I think you should, you, Mike, and Ms. Woods could go to your department heads and because they got to start figuring their budget and what they can and can't cut and make things happen.
And I would agree. I think they're smart enough to know what they can and can't live without. I mean, right now we're kind of playing a throwing knife fight in the dark. So, hopefully you guys can dodge those knives. But I think everybody's smart enough and capable of saying, yeah, we could. Again, that lawnmower's already been bought, but facetiously speaking, I could do without this lawnmower and let the other one work. But I think it'll all work out. I think we got a good team. I think you guys know where the council sits, and we know where you sit. We've worked like a well-oiled machine for a full year, and because of this pandemic, I don't think it's going to slow any of your production down. I have faith in each and every one of you, and so does this council. So let's keep plugging away.
One more question for Mike, and to Dan's point about the street dances, what does that actually cost us to put those on? Because I mean, I've thought that before too. Is boy, we could maybe save some money by not having that. I mean, how much is the cost to us to put those things on, and can we afford to do them? And what do you think about that?
Well, the cost of each street dance is a little bit different just because of the cost of the band, right? So some of the bands are going to be $5,000 versus $1,300, right? So that is that is a primary expenditure right there. A lot of the other is in staff time. Now, from a planning perspective, once I have a full-time staff, the allocation of their time throughout the year is important, and it should be important to the residents and the council, but from a financial perspective, doesn't really make too much of a difference for me. But those are certainly the biggest costs, is getting the entertainment and allocating that staff time. And any time that they spend on a street dance or something is time they've not spent on something else. But fiscally speaking, it's one pocket or the other.
And even time of going out and finding that talent. I helped Miss Garvey do it. I helped, I value Miss Garvey so much, I forgot the gal before her.
Katie Everett.
Katie Everett, there we go. Sorry, Miss Everett, if you're listening. I helped her as well. I mean, I listened to the bands. If there's somebody that I think would be sufficient, I mention it. Some do cost more than others, but for the most part, I personally don't find it's a community event. I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, we're not gonna save a lot of money, and I agree. I mean, I think right now it's more important than ever to have those kind of events.
absolutely
So there's not a lot of money to be saved by cutting in that area. It was,
no.
right.
No, but my whole point was, at my home, house payment comes before cable TV. House repairs come before video games. Those things, that's the way we need to do it here, Like, I agree with everybody. Department heads know what they can cut and what they can live without, so.
And let's look at that first and go from there, and we'll see what happens. So, I mean, we're jumping the gun, but we want to be more proactive. So, and it may not happen. And then Dan, just for example, then, you talk about that, then I know something you're very passionate about, is sledding hill. That's gonna cost us money to put in.
Yep.
I mean, these things are, but we have to have something for the people that are paying these taxes in this town.
Oh, I understand. but
And I
why
hate to cut those funds out, but I think there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes that nobody sees that can be cut first.
Prioritize it.
Absolutely. And I would even defend that sliding hill to where another community event. You're going to cut community events out to where, that's why I leaned on department heads are more than capable. And we'll leave it at that. Let's move on to our last item, E7 code enforcement process discussion. I don't know why this is on there, but Ms. Wood? Oh, Chief Myers.
You got 2 seconds.
Supposed to be quick. Council, Mayor, I know we've had discussions since we've taken over code enforcement with some of you as well as staff regarding to how we handle code enforcement or nuisance violations. For example, we're getting a complaint of your neighbor has garbage in their front yard. Our code enforcement's following this. They'll go make contact. They give them a letter. They have 14 days to comply. A week goes by, you call back and ask why we haven't did anything with that nuisance garbage in the front yard. That 14-day comes, you write them a ticket. There's a 10-day time window after the ticket, so now we're 24 days after the initial call. So that's the guideline we're following. Just want to bring it to council to see if this is from 2016, if this is still the way you want to follow that code enforcement side of it. So there's a few pieces in that. It's the 14 days is what we give a letter. Should it be shorter? That's the decision. We will abide by what you want, as long as you understanding the ramifications. When it's usually the complainant that's having a lot of issues with, hey, we called last week, what's going on? There's still garbage in the guy's front yard. Or following this guideline of the 14 days for the letter before we make the enforcement action. So there's only that piece. And number one, we should want to have a discussion on, because I've heard a lot of discussion from council on how you want code enforcement done. Complaint-based versus being on the offensive. Number one actually defines that. So if you want to read number one, it talks about it's going to be either complaint-driven or inspection-based. Want to leave it as is, that's fine, or if you want to take out the inspection-based and just leave it as complaint-driven. So just asking for guidance basically on the timeline, and number one, if you wanted to leave it as it's written, or if you want to write it as complaint-based under this resolution that we're following.
I personally think it should be complaint-driven, and on that notification time, is there anything legally binding to that 14 days, or is it just our decision to make?
That is your decision to make. This was the decision from the council in 2016, so there's nothing legally binding in that. If there's right now, if you have garbage in your front yard, by law, we could write you the ticket today. Granted, I don't think that's the appropriate way to do the enforcement action, because code enforcement should be given the option to comply. You might not know the ordinance or whatever, so we need to give them some kind of compliance window in there.
That's where I said this should, I agree with Councilman Lundin, it should be complaint based. However, if Jed happens to be driving down the road and he sees something, he does have the right to get out of that car, knock on their door, and inform them of that ordinance. Give them a little education, per se. And he can document that he did so, and if it's not taken care of, well, then he should have that right to take the next step. But the majority should be complaint-based. I don't want him to stop him on doing his due diligence either. The guy's good at what he does. But I would totally be behind complaint-based. I don't want to be out here picking on people. We've already been down that road in this city.
Mayor, having the language in here, though, that inspection-based along with that, informs the public that if they are there, complaint-based, and he does notice something around, they do have the ability to move forward on that. I think looking for direction on, going and talking to someone and educating them, that didn't really start the clock. So if they go and educate them, let's say he gives them a week's time, but they didn't do anything about it, then he sends out a letter, then it starts the 14 days, then the 14 days again, and then 10 days. So is council comfortable with doing the education piece that may delay that longer, because that's what code enforcement and Chief Myers has to inform the complaint person that, well, this is a process that we follow, and then that should be in by resolution that we educate them first, if that's what we want to do 100% of the time. Or do we want to leave it to the discretion of the CSO officer that depends if it's egregious or not? I don't know.
I think giving him a fair shake isn't a bad idea.
And then, you could maybe cut that time down a little by,
7 days?
yeah, and then offering them if they need an extension because it's a big project and maybe they're not physically able to get it done that quick, they could maybe ask for an extension before that period is up, before, they're supposed to have it done. So that'd be an option for people if they can't get it done in the shorter amount of time. They can ask for an extension, and they have to have a reason why they need that extension, though. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to explain?
I'd like to see it only complaint-based and keep it at 14 days.
Do you have an opinion, Councilman Brigley?
Councilmember Gordon, what about educating them prior to the letter being sent? Do you have an opinion on that?
What if they're not aware of that ordinance, Councilman Gordon? What if they're a new resident?
If they're not aware, then we can go and if our CSO officer wants to educate them, but if nobody's complaining about it, then his job is done, in my opinion. He's educated them, and if there's no complaints, then let's say there is a complaint.
Let's say there is a complaint.
Oh.
Does he then send the letter automatically if there's been a complaint? If we go
I think
complaint-driven
so.
only?
Yeah, I mean, if there's.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so no education piece prior to sending a letter. The letter is the notification of education.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think
Starts the clock
if there's
at
a
14
complaint,
days.
then he sends the letter right away. But if there's no complaint, I wouldn't expect him just to drive around, and if he sees something, that's what I'm saying as far as the complaint-based only. That's what I would like to see him spending his time on, is only following up on the complaints and not going out and looking for other issues that nobody's complained about. And I think the 14 days is reasonable.
I think that letter would act as the education.
So, but getting back to what the chief was stating, by the time it's all said and done, it's like, what, a 24, 24 days for someone to move a trailer 2 feet off the grass onto their driveway. So you're gonna get a lot of continued complaints about that over that 24-day period. Why hasn't he done this something so simple yet? You find yourself doing that a lot? Getting a lot of repeat calls? When are you gonna do something about it? When are you gonna do something about it?
Yes, we get that on this as well as a lot of other law enforcement pieces, but, you know, this one in particular, I know that's one of the frustrations that I get back from our CSO is he's getting repetitive complaints, and why aren't you handling that issue? And again, if that's something that the council wants, it's fine, we'll be able to at least say this is our city code, city ordinance, this is what council has approved, and in essence, passing it back to the council is why we're not doing anything, because that's what it says. So I mean, if that's what you want to leave as, but we do get a lot of repeat complaints. 'Cause like you said, why, you went out, looked at that trailer last week, it's still there, why aren't you doing your job?
24 days later, it's still there.
Yes.
I could see that being a problem for you guys.
Is that what it is right now? It's 24 days?
Well, it's 14 days until we can issue the citation, so it's 2 weeks. Then we issue the citation, it can still be there, and I'd say the majority of our code enforcement is they get the letter and they make a pretty good effort and they don't actually get completed, but we're able to work through it. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, there's nothing that we're gonna do to change it until it actually goes over to some other avenue.
So that would be my concern is why aren't we wrapping this all up in 14 days versus 24?
Because it's their property and they pay taxes and they should have, as long as I think it's reasonably possible to have the right to take care of it and get it done.
But just an example, to move a fish house off the grass into your driveway shouldn't take you 24 days.
It wouldn't take me 24 days, but
Or a trailer, or rubbish.
That's why I'm saying I would be okay with shortening that. And if they physically cannot do it, they can ask for an extension.
Then you're stepping out of that 14 days.
Then you are. Then you're giving them another chance,
You're giving them a whole month to
but
get
they
rid
have
of
to come
something.
forward to ask for that chance. They're not just giving it to them. They have to ask for it.
Councilman Collison, I think, under that revenue, you're more reasonable, majority of people who are gonna actually do it would ask for it.
Right.
If you have the no person, they're not gonna ask for it, they're not gonna do it in 7 days, they're not gonna do it in 14 days.
Doesn't matter how long you give them.
Correct. It
They
just
ain't
said
gonna
it
do
takes
it.
14 days for us to actually take the enforcement action. But,
Yeah.
your reasonable person would, in our letter, I mean, we could even put it in there that you can ask for an extension if there's exigent
I
circumstances.
broke my leg, family's out of town, it's my grandparents' house, whatever.
And our whole role in any law enforcement, whether it's code enforcement or other law enforcement, is changing behavior and corrective action. Writing the tickets not necessarily change the behavior. So we'd rather have the compliance versus anything else.
I do want to make mayor and council aware, there is also, if they are repeat offenders, they don't, that grace period of the 14 days is waived. They can immediately receive a citation if they are repeated within the same 12-month period. So, not sure if that matters, but just so you know.
Does that answer your question, Chief Myers?
Kind of. I mean, we're a little bit across the board. We're still for consensus.
I think we have to bring
would
this
you-
back at a different time and date myself.
What would you like to see? I
Well-
mean, are you okay with the 24-hour possibly, or 24-day prolonged out deal?
It causes some havoc because we're getting complaints that we're not doing our job. No matter how we tell them that, we're not doing our job. And that's the issue. We are a customer service-based organization. You call a complaint, you call the police, you're expecting to get a result. And we're not given a result. A lot of people don't understand why we're waiting too long.
Let's bring this one back, Ms. Wood.
Yeah, can we do that?
Let's bring this back. Because
I'll
of
make a
time
motion to
constraints. Thank you. Who said that? Councilman
Second.
Lundin made a motion to adjourn. Councilman Collison second. State your name and say aye.
Jimmy Gordon, aye.
Paul Burgley, aye.
Steve Lundin, aye.
Dan Collison, aye.
And Jeff Johnson, aye. Therefore, we stand adjourned because there are no others that oppose. Thanks, fellas.